must have been curious about. And let's talk about it. Population issues in Nigeria. Of course, it took center stage earlier this week when the National Population Commission, NPC, launched the 13th annual population lecture series, which contains policy briefs, strategic recommendations, and detailed reflections on the implications of changing funding patterns for population activities in Nigeria.
So the report harped on the fact that for too long, Nigeria has relied on external donor support and health interventions.
It was also pointed out that with the shift of global funding landscapes due to economic shocks and changing geopolitical priorities, Nigeria now faces dwindling international support alongside rapid population growth, which continues to put pressure on infrastructure and social services.
And the need to shift from international donor aid to domestic funding to sustain Nigeria's population and developmental agenda was therefore identified as key in pursuing future population agenda.
So how do Nigeria's population authorities intend to go about this in a sustainable manner?
How possible is it to pursue a new population agenda in the absence of a recent scientific process like a census to serve as a database?
These are some of the issues we'll be taking up with Dr. Nnamdi Maduekwe. He is the Director of Population Studies at the National Population Commission, NPC.
He will be joined by John Chawa, manager at the Planned Parenthood Federation of Nigeria, and Dr. Ejike Oji, that's the chairman of the Association for the Advancement of Family Planning.
So when we're done doing that, we will talk about health and specifically cancer, because, you know, it's the 4th Wednesday of the month of March and time for another round of Kakaaki Cancer Awareness, which is brought to you in collaboration with the Commode Cancer Foundation, whose CEO, Dr. Denise Ejo, will be taking on the issue of prostate cancer and its disparities in men of African ancestry.
And joining her to discuss this is Clayton C. Yates, PhD, professor of pathology.
So that's the outlook for this morning. It is an interesting one, especially for Nigerians and for Nigerian men too. So make sure you are part of it, because you can be part of it by sending your views and comments to all our social media handles on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Just go to at Africa Independent TV, you will be able to find us on YouTube. So you can stay up to date with all of the latest news from around the world.
Now, talking about latest news from around the world, we'll now join our news desk for Kakaaki World News. This is the world news on Kakaaki African Voice. You're welcome. Iran has named Mahmoud Bija Zoldada, former commander of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, as the successor of Ali Larijani, the head of the country's Supreme National Security Council, NSSC, who was killed in a U.S.-Israeli airstrike earlier this month. President Masoud Pezeshkian's deputy of communications announced the appointment on X on Tuesday. The SNSC, formerly chaired by Pezeshkian, coordinates security and foreign policy and includes top military, intelligence, and government officials, in addition to representatives of Supreme Leader Mujtaba Kamani Zugadeh, who served in the 1980s war against Saddam Hussein's Iraq, went on to become head of the IRGC's Joint Staff for 8 years and then Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Elite Force for another 8 years. U.S. President Donald Trump's dramatic description of very strong talks with Iran suggested the door to diplomacy has been flung open for what he said could be a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. But Iran almost immediately denied that talks had begun, and so far there are only signs of small windows being opened by a crack. One is the same window that was shattered during previous rounds of diplomacy in February and in June last year by U.S.-backed Israeli attacks on Iran, which destroyed the little trust that existed. There is said to be some communication between the two lead negotiators. In previous discussions, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff, but these conversations are described as very preliminary. Russia has launched the largest aerial attack on Ukraine over a 24-hour period since the war began, hitting cities across the country with 948 drones. More than 400 drones were fired on Tuesday afternoon alone in an unusual daytime attack which killed and injured many across western Ukraine. Those strikes came hours after a heavy overnight attack left at least 5 people dead. In Lviv, Mayor Andrei Sadovi said 22 people in the city were injured and warned that the number would increase. The region's head, Maxim Kursky, said the Bernardine Monastery, a 16th century UNESCO site, was damaged. A video posted by Lviv authorities shows a fire burning through the roof of a residential building near the monastery. The 2 Air Canada pilots killed when a plane crashed into a fire truck at LaGuardia Airport have been identified as Ationi Forrest and Mackenzie Goodhar. Local media reported that Forrest was 30 years old and from Quebec, while Goodhar graduated from Seneca Polytechnic in Toronto in 2023. The incident, which happened, that injured 41 people who were taken to hospital and shot the New York airport until Monday afternoon. An investigation has been launched into the matter. The investigation will include analyzing the plane's cockpit, voice recorder, and flight data recorder. Forrest had learned to fly bush planes in Sagwani in 2018 before being hired by Air Canada in December 2022. And Germany says it wants to make pornographic deepfakes a criminal offense after a TV star accused her former husband of spreading sexualized images of her online. Carleon Fernandez, 44-year-old, has filed a legal complaint in Spain against her former husband, 50-year-old actor Christian Umen. The case, reported by Der Spiegel last week, has sparked a big debate in Germany about digital violence on the internet. More than 250 prominent German women have called on the government to protect people from digital sexualized violence. Umen's lawyer, Christian Sad, said in a statement that Der Spiegel's reporting was unlawful for several reasons and that they were taking legal action. The case has touched a nerve in Germany. Ghana has signed a defense agreement with the European Union, EU, as Islamist militants continue to wreak havoc in neighboring countries. The agreement, signed in Accra by EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas and Ghanaian Vice President Naana Jane Opoko Agyemang, strengthens cooperation in areas such as counterterrorism and cybersecurity. Ghana is the first African country to make such a deal with the EU. Though Ghana has so far remained largely untouched by militant violence, the surrounding West African region has become a hotbed of activities by affiliates of Al-Qaeda and Islamic State IS group. Tuesday's agreement signals the EU's determination to support Ghana's effort at tackling emerging threats both at the national and the regional levels. Osman Abdul Razak, Ghana's National Security Coordinator, said at a joint press conference on Tuesday. Another major shift in Nigerian politics occurs as Zamfara State Governor Daud Lawal decamps from the People's Democratic Party, PDP, to the All Progressives Congress, APC. The governor made the announcement at a ceremony in Gusau, promising to bring his development agenda to his new party. The move was generated excitement among APC supporters, with Vice President Kashim Shettima praising the governor's decision. We'll take a closer look at what this means for the governor's plans and the APC's chances in the 2027 elections.
Shettima said there's no better time for Governor Lawal to join the APC than now, describing the party as progressive. The Vice President welcomed the governor to the APC's fold, saying his experience will boost the party's effort.
Well, I must confess that I was overwhelmed by the avalanche of people that came out to welcome us to Gusau. It's a testimony to the fact that the governor is firmly on ground, and beyond that, I saw a galaxy of monumental projects, life-changing projects on public works, on infrastructure that has transformed Gusau from a sleepy railway town to a modern city. We are mightily proud of him. He has been part of us. He has been my personal friend right from my days in the banking industry.
Governor Lawal assured that his decamping won't slow down his development efforts. He said he is ready to do more and tackle insecurity in the state.
You can see that we're doing so much in that aspect. Just last month, we bought over 35 APCs with a drone and even an attack drone to fight insecurity. So that tells you that we're on top of that. And it is something that will continue until we get to the end of it.
Citing the mammoth crowd as a testimony to his achievement, the crowd at the decamping ceremony cheered as the Governor Lawal announced his new affiliation. The governor's supporters expressed their continued backing for his leadership, saying they are ready to support him in his new party. Mustafa Muhammad, AIT News, Gusau.
Still talking politics, the opposition African Democratic Congress, ADC, has reiterated the urgent need to strengthen internal democracy, transparency, and accountability in the party. The party's national chairman, Senator David Mark, who spoke through the party's legal advisor, Professor Osirieme Osumbo, at the submission of the report of the Constitution Review Committee in Abuja, said the party's national chairman, Senator David Mark, emphasized that the task of reviewing the party constitution must reflect current realities. Mark particularly encouraged wide consultations across the states, zones, and critical stakeholders of the party in the course of reviewing it. Speaking earlier, the chairman of the ADC Constitution Review Committee, Etigwe Uwa, noted that the report highlighted the work of the committee and the need to address the innovations introduced into the draft constitution and the significant areas of departure from the original constitution.
The strength of any political party lies not only in its rules, but in the willingness of its members to abide by them.
There's also been the introduction of some affirmative action for participation of women and youth, and they are proposed at 30%.
We'll bring that, continue that in the proposed amendment. Affirmative actions provisions recommended 30% representation for women and 20% for youth, as well as measures to ensure the inclusion of persons with disabilities. And Nigeria is taking a major step towards preventing conflict before they escalate with the launch and strengthening of a national early warning system designed to detect threat in real time and trigger rapid response. The Director General of Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution, Joseph Ochugo, said the National Conflict Early Warning Response system marks a shift from reactive crisis management to proactive conflict prevention across the country.
The growing security challenges across the country has necessitated the urgent need for adopting successful early warning system, which stakeholders say is key to preventing conflicts, saving lives, and strengthening national unity. The Director General of Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution, Joseph Ochogu, while briefing journalists, said the system is designed to identify early signs of tension, ranging from farmer-herder clashes to communal disputes, resource competition, and climate-related pressures before they escalate into violence.
The National Conflict Early Warning Early Response System represents a shift from reactive crisis management to preventive evidence-based interventions, ensuring that emerging threats are detected early and addressed before escalation into violence. The overarching goal of the system is to strengthen Nigerians' capacity for timely conflict prevention and coordinated response.
Ochogu in real
several tools that support decision-making and peace building. This includes the National Conflict Watch, which provides a snapshot of conflict trends across the country. We also do policy briefs that guide government interventions. We also do early warning reports that inform safety and security decisions.
Institutions such as the National Boundary Commission and the National Orientation Agency are among key stakeholders working alongside security agencies, traditional rulers, and civil society groups.
Now, just how seriously do we take water? Yes, we use it for drinking, we use it for cooking, and even for bathing, cleaning. But would you ever connect it to water equality? Well, the Nigerian government has now declared that access to water is no longer just about survival. It is now at the heart of gender equality and national development. The declaration was made on Tuesday by the Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation, Joseph Osev, as part of activities to mark this year's World Water Day. According to the minister, the federal government is repositioning water as a driver for clean energy, food security, climate resilience, and inclusive national development.
For many women and girls, access to water is not just about turning on a tap. It is about opportunity, dignity, and the chance to live a better life. The Nigerian government says it is aligning efforts with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals on clean water and gender equality, while pushing forward large-scale interventions.
The Federal Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation continues to implement strategic interventions that are aimed at improving water supply, sanitation, irrigation, flood management.
Across communities like Lugbe in Abuja, where the Federal Ministry of Water Resources has carried out sensitization campaigns and say the burden of water collection still falls heavily on women and girls.
Today, I call on all stakeholders, government donors, civil society and private sector, and Nigeria's young people to push further and faster. Let us invest boldly and act decisively so that every girl in Nigeria grows up in a world where water is not a barrier to her potential.
According to a new global report by UNESCO, The lack of reliable data on how water challenges affect men and women differently is slowing progress. Without clear information, it becomes harder for leaders to design solutions that truly address the needs of those most affected.
And a fuel tanker accident in Ibadan, Oyo State has left several people feared dead. A bogus articulated lorry lost its brakes and rammed into Oja Market, killing and injuring several people selling by the roadside. The driver struggled to regain control, but the lorry eventually crashed into commercial tricycles loading passengers. Emergency responders.
The brake failure occurred around Bere, which the driver struggled to regain control, but the lorry eventually crashed into commercial tricycles loading passengers around Oje Market. Emergency responders, including state ambulances and firefighters, were quickly on the scene to prevent a potential fire outbreak. The State Road Management Agency, OITMA, has removed the lorry to ease traffic congestion. The extent of the casualty is still unknown, with eyewitness reporting multiple fatalities. Some emergency responders, including Red Cross and firefighters, gave account of the accident.
I got a call that there was an accident at Ojaoba axis of Oje, and since then we'll be here. We'll be trying as much as possible to keep the area safe for people around that are uninjured, and those that are injured, being able to manage them.
The Oyo State government regretted the incident, but insisted that roadside trading is not allowed in the state, as well as street hawking. Femi Amusho, AIT News, Ibadan.
Former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami has suggested that political factors may be behind his ongoing dispute with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. His reaction follows the sealing of his Maitama residence in Abuja by the anti-graft agency earlier this week, based on a court order tied to an ongoing case. Malami described the EFCC's action as unusual and inconsistent with due legal process, arguing that it was improper for a party in a pending case to enforce such an order, especially when the matter had already been adjourned to April 20 without involving court officials like bailiffs. Malami further accused the EFCC of unilaterally enforcing an interim forfeiture order issued in January, despite the fact that he is challenging it in court.
EFCC and Abubakar Malami are the parties before the court in the circumstances. So the idea of one of them, either the EFCC or Abubakar Malami, to initiate processes without recourse to the court is unprecedented in the Nigerian history. EFCC as a party before the court cannot enforce the order, even if indeed they were granted an express order for eviction of my person, an express order of taking over my property, an express order of perhaps appointment of a receiver manager, which in the circumstances needs to be litigated by the parties before the court.
The Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, has arraigned former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai at the Federal High Court in Kaduna State. The arraignment was conducted under heavy security presence.
Security was tightened at the Federal High Court in Kaduna as operatives restricted movement and barricaded major access roads leading to the court premises during the arraignment of former Governor Nasir El-Rufai. The ICPC is prosecuting the former governor over allegations related to financial transactions, including deposits into a domiciliary account and alleged monetization of earnings. The case, presided over by Justice Rilwanu Aikawa, commenced at about 9:30 a.m. and lasted more than 3 hours. Journalists were barred from covering proceedings inside the courtroom, with no official reasons provided for the restriction. Counsel to the defendant, Barrister Ubong Akpan, briefed journalists on what transpired in court.
The charges against Malam El-Rufai amount basically to allegations of deposit of money into his domiciliary account and monetization of his earnings. They finally joined Joel on the 10th count. Out of 10 counts, they joined him on only one. Gentlemen, what we have is that they applied to arraign, and I respectfully pointed out that since Malam El-Rufai has proceedings pending with respect to the judge himself, the judge cannot proceed. The judge, in his wisdom, decided to proceed with the arraignment. That's all that happened. Nothing problematic.
Well, we heard that there are other cases, especially one at the State High Court.
I do not know about that yet. Until we are served, then we'll determine.
Bello El-Rufai, son of the former governor, said the family remains confident in the rule of law and described their presence as a show of solidarity.
So I just here to support them, and we believe in the judicial process and the rule of law. So may God continue to bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
We believe in the judicial process, and that we are strongly optimistic that at the end of the process, what will happen is we would have more confidence in the judicial of this country.
The case has been adjourned to 31st of March, when the bail application will be heard. Abimaja Moses, AIT News, Kaduna.
And former Senate leader Ali Ndume has called on the federal government to ensure that the Nigerian army is fully equipped to win the battle against insurgency and banditry. The senator representing Borno South made the call on Tuesday while speaking with journalists in Abuja. Ndume had over the weekend visited Ugoshe and Puka in company of the Borno State Governor, Professor Babagana Zulum. Checks revealed that the Boko Haram sect, in conjunction with Islamic State West Africa Province, ISWAP, carried out coordinated attacks in Gosho community in Gwoza local government area of Borno State, where they killed some soldiers, the village head, and some community elders, including a woman. Unspecified women and children were also abducted. The Nigerian army had since routed the terrorists from the two communities. The federal lawmaker who commended Governor Zulum for seizing the initiative to visit the ravished communities and the displaced residents in their internally displaced persons camps urged the federal government to assist the Borno State government in rebuilding the communities and giving immediate succor to the displaced persons. And at least 70 people and members of the predominantly Tiv ethnic group were reported feared dead following coordinated attacks on multiple communities in Chanchanji Council ward of Takum local government area of Taraba State in northeast Nigeria. In the past 1 year, the attacks were said to have occurred simultaneously across several villages, overwhelming residents and leaving widespread casualties. The worrying incident have compelled the Taraba State Tiv youth leaders to stage a protest to the National Assembly complex, seeking quick intervention.
Not a political organization or any group. Nor are we being paid by any politician or group of politicians. We are simply Tiv youth leaders who are determined to speak truth to power and demand justice for our people.
We are in Taraba. That is our place. Our great-grandfathers were born there. Our ancestors were born there. We were there before independence. We were there before Nigeria existed. We don't have anywhere to go. That is where God created us and kept us.
And that's the world news on Kakaaki African Voice this morning. Up next is Kakaaki Business.
Welcome to Kakaaki Business. I am Olamide Ario. The World Economic Forum has postponed its upcoming conference in Saudi Arabia due to escalating regional tensions linked to the Iran war. The organization announced the decision in a statement on Tuesday, noting that the Global Collaboration and Growth meeting, initially scheduled to hold in Jeddah in April, will be rescheduled. The move reflects a growing trend of high-profile events being disrupted amid geopolitical uncertainties in the Middle East. The World Economic Forum said the decision was taken to ensure optimal conditions for the meeting's objective and impact. The WEF added that a new date for the conference will be communicated in due course. And U.S. stock index futures were down early on Tuesday after a relief rally in the previous session, as renewed doubts over easing Middle East tensions weighed on sentiment, despite President Donald Trump's decision to delay strikes on Iran's power grid. Earlier on Monday, Trump postponed a threat to bomb Iran's power grid because of what he described as productive talks with unidentified Iranian officials. Israeli officials said on Tuesday that Trump wants a deal with Iran, but the success of any potential talks was unlikely. Investors initially drew comfort from Trump's comments, sending Wall Street main indexes rallying to more than 1% on Monday in their biggest one-day rise since February 6. But the momentum lost steam as uncertainty over the conflict lingered. The United States has banned new foreign-made consumer internet routers over national security concerns, in an update to a list of equipment seen as not secure enough for use. The Federal Communications Commission added all consumer-grade routers made outside the U.S. It put routers on a par with foreign-made drones, which were banned at the end of last year. While people will still be able to use foreign-made routers they already own, the ban applies to all new device models. The ban stems from growing concern over the last year that routers were a point of easy access for malicious actors. Any new router made outside the U.S. will now need to be approved by the FCC before it can be imported, marketed, or sold in the country. The S&P Global UK Composite PMI fell to 51.0 in March 2026, down from 53.7 in February and below expectations of 52.9, according to preliminary data. This marks the slowest output growth since September 2025, as both services and manufacturing activity weakened. New business inflows declined for the first time in 4 months, with firms attributing the drop to falling confidence amid the Middle East conflict, rising inflation, and expectations of higher borrowing costs. Employment declined at a faster pace, and business confidence plunged to a 9-month low. On the price front, input cost inflation hit its highest since February 2023, with manufacturers reporting the steepest cost increases since October 2022 and the sharpest month-on-month acceleration since October 1992. Output charges also surged, adding to cost pressures. And in Eurozone, the S&P Global Composite PMI declined to 50.5 in March 2026, down from 51.9 in February and below market expectations of 51.0. This signals only marginal growth in the bloc's private sector, the weakest in 10 months as service sector activity nearly stalled. New orders contracted for the first time in 8 months, and employment continued to fall amid rising uncertainty tied to the Middle East conflict. On the price front, input cost inflation surged to its fastest pace since February 2023, while output prices rose at the sharpest rate since February 2024. Supply chains also face severe disruption, with suppliers' delivery times lengthening the most in over 3.5 years. Finally, business confidence plummeted to its lowest in nearly a year, marking the steepest drop since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Gold held above $4,400 per ounce on Tuesday, swinging between gains and losses amid heightened Middle East tensions as Iran denied holding talks with the United States to end the conflict. On Monday, gold had staged a sharp intraday rebound after Trump postponed planned U.S. strike on Iranian energy infrastructure and claimed negotiations were underway. The outcome of any talks and the potential reopening of the Strait of Hormuz remained highly uncertain, keeping inflation risk elevated. Gold had fallen as much as 25% from its March peak as rising energy prices fueled inflation concerns and reinforced expectations of further interest rate hikes. Nigeria's passenger car imports climbed 21.4% to $1.03 million in 2025, driven largely by rising vehicle prices, foreign exchange volatility, and higher landing costs, according to NBS data. Analysts say the increase in cost-driven rather than demand-led as naira weakness and limited FX access pushed up import expenses, even as consumer purchasing power remained constrained. Despite the higher import value, actual vehicle volumes likely stayed flat or declined, with dealers facing slow turnover and buyers shifting towards cheaper or distressed vehicles. Broader transport equipment imports also rose to $4.3 million, underscoring Nigeria's continued reliance on automotive imports amid persistent structural and currency pressures. Nigeria's drive to grow non-oil exports is gaining ground, but a new study shows structural challenges are still limiting small businesses from fully benefiting from global trade. At a policy roundtable in Abuja, stakeholders warn that without stronger collaboration between market players and regulators, Nigeria may continue to lose out on the sector's full benefit. The study by the Network of Practicing Non-Oil Exporters of Nigeria shows that while non-oil exports rose to a record $6.1 billion in 2025, exporters still face major hurdles, ranging from high logistic costs and limited access to finance to regulatory bottlenecks and low awareness of key trade frameworks. At this forum, keynote speaker and economist Henry Adigo urged regulators to position themselves as enablers of business growth rather than focusing mainly on revenue generation, a view shared by industry players.
Competitiveness is not driven by laws. Competitiveness is driven by systems. Everybody plays a role. You see, when the customs stop thinking of themselves as tax collectors, but as business enablers, the whole thing will change. When they start looking at their revenue targets and looking at how do we aid business, how do we be an enabler of those trying to get markets out of the good, everything changes.
The improvement in ease of doing business on exportation particularly, and therefore our exporters today are exporting less than 15% of what they ought to do. And by the time the environment is made right, the operating environment is made right, then they could attain 80, 90% and even create new ways.
Regulators, however, stress exporters must prioritize standards and compliance, warning that failure to meet global requirements could weaken Nigeria's competitiveness in international markets.
So I want to use this opportunity once more again to let our people know that export of non-oil is standard-based, and you cannot just cross any line without following the due process.
Let me tell you, competitiveness, when you're talking about export, depends on quality, standards compliance, and also leveraging on the digital tools that helps trade move faster. It is our pleasure to join the network of practicing non-oil exporters of Nigeria in this discussion.
Overall, the study finds that Nigeria's non-oil export potential remains strong, but progress is slowed by structural and institutional gaps that prevent businesses, especially SMEs, from scaling and competing globally. It recommends stronger coordination between regulators and exporters, improved access to finance, and investment in logistics. And Nigeria recorded a crude oil and condensate production shortfall of about 16.6 million barrels in the first 2 months of 2026. This is contained in the latest data from the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC, highlighting a significant gap between actual output and the government's projections for the year. Under the 2026 budget benchmark, Nigeria was expected to produce about 57 million barrels in January and 51.5 million barrels in February, bringing total projected output to roughly 108.6 million barrels for the period. However, actual production stood at about 92 million barrels of crude oil and condensate combined, falling below the expected daily target of 1.84 million barrels. The report shows that cumulative daily production deficit over the 2 months resulted in an overall shortfall of approximately 16.6 million barrels. This underscores ongoing underperformance in Nigeria's oil sector as output continues to fall short of expectations despite favorable global oil prices. And that's Kakaaki Business. I am Olamide Ario.
Thank you so much for staying with us. You are watching Kakaaki, the African Voice, this Wednesday morning. And that was Kakaaki Business coming to you. Of course, we take you into something else now. And let's tell you that the 2026 Electoral Act has remained in conversation. People are still talking about it, and the act has remained controversial. Now, the national chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, Yusuf Dantale, wants the immediate amendment or outright repeal of the act, warning that its current provisions could undermine Nigeria's democratic process and jeopardize the credibility of the 2027 general election. Dantale he said this while speaking at a meeting with the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and leaders of political parties, which was held at the Commission's headquarters in Abuja. Let's take that report.
The chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, Yusuf Dantale, criticized the requirement for submission of membership registers with national identification numbers, saying it could disenfranchise millions, as he called for the restoration of electronic transmission of results and renewed demands for an Electoral Offences Commission to tackle vote buying, among other reforms.
The prevailing trust deficit and voter apathy will persist unless decisive steps are taken to reform the current electoral framework.
INEC's chairman, Josh Amapita, reaffirmed the Commission's commitment to credible polls, noting that new regulations have been developed in line with the Electoral Act 2026.
Create a political environment that not only reflects the aspiration of our people, but also serves as a testament to our collective commitment to democratic governance.
Other party leaders who briefed journalists believe the process will be credible if INEC is transparent.
The case was thrown out because it lacked merit. If a party, anybody can choose to pronounce themselves as a chairman and go to court, the court looks at it and discovers that you have no local standing, and it throws it out.
With preparations underway, attention is now on the National Assembly amid growing calls for urgent amendments to protect the integrity of the 2027 general elections. Amaka Okoro, AIT News, Abuja.
All right, the Electoral Act still in conversation, and political parties taking a second look at it. Well, will I call that a second look? They've been talking about it for quite a while, especially since, even while it was, the enactment was in progress, the political parties have been raising concerns about it. And now, the national chairman of IPAC is saying that the current provisions are deadly to Nigeria's election in 2027 and, of course, the democratic process.
Right. I saw the development yesterday, and even while it was immediately passed at the time, like weeks ago, they put out a statement that this does not make sense and is going to, skew, like yesterday, the word they used, is going to skew our democratic process. But I'm looking at it really, I already had a conversation with someone about it this morning who said that, well, laws are not cast on stones. After all, amendments are still ongoing, even in the act that we think that we should already be running with, referring to dual party membership that will make you pay 10 million naira or you go to jail for 2 years if you are found being a member of more than a party.
Don't worry, I won't be found.
Well, if one is found being a member of more than one political party, and I think that if they've insisted, it's inter-party, it's not opposition. We don't have to call it opposition. It's inter-party advisory council. If they're advising now, taking up their cap and, their ropes and advising that this is going to mutilate our election process, I think it's something that we should listen to, because key on their concerns is the direct primaries, which they say that they've removed indirect primaries from the Electoral Amendment Act. What we have now is consensus. People have also argued that consensus is usually consensus on paper, but deep down is you buying me, a fellow aspirant, to say, okay, please take this and let me be the consensus candidate. The direct primaries as well is almost going to take them forever with the shortened time that they have. You know that from 180 to 90, a lot of durations and guidelines were reduced drastically so that we can have election on January 15th of next year. That's the national elections. People have also had problems with that people are not even back from their villages, from celebrations yet, and then we're going to be voting our president and our federal lawmakers. So a lot of concerns right there. And as I say, if this is something to look at, I think that we need to look at it right now. We cannot say, oh, it's a law that has just been amended. We need to re-amend this amended Electoral Act of 2026.
You need to amend the amendment. Well, talking about direct primaries, or even whether it's consensus you want to use to choose party flag bearers for elections, a simple thread runs through both of them. You talked about the consensus, meaning that other candidates vying for a particular ticket could have been bought, or other aspirants, yes, aspirants, not candidates now, or other people aspiring to obtain tickets could be bought. Of course, that's what we have seen practiced in the past. And even the direct primaries, what you see is that delegates are bought. That's when dollars begin to flow. And all of these are inimical.
Dollarized primaries.
Yes, they are inimical to true intra-party democracy, which will ensure that the best candidates emerge for the main election, where the people will now choose from. What the parties are doing in that wise is denying the people the right representation. All of this constitutes a warp in our leadership recruitment process. That is on one side. On the other side is the issue, are the issues that people have raised concerning the Electoral Act itself, and that the Senate and the National Assembly should take a second look, another look at it, not the second look now, another look at it to ensure that these provisions are made with the people in mind and with the aim of ensuring that we have better elections, and elections that will be more representative of the will of the people, that are credible, and that people can applaud and say, this is our thing, we own it.
After all, amendment is still ongoing, as you mentioned here, so we still have time. Maybe, maybe not.
All right, let's leave that for now and move on to other segments of the program, the social intervention segments coming up now.
Now, everyone has 60 seconds in every day to spare. So if you're ready, let's go! Hey, so great. Hold on tight to that cushion. Don't lose it like me. Awesome. 3, 2, 1, and time. Wow, those 6-packs are popping, baby. Well done! I hope you had a great workout. Anyway, what I need you to do is to follow us on Instagram at Alpha Fitness Studios and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Alpha Fitness Studios, for free workout videos, free dance videos, sales and promos, and make sure you join us at the gym, Alpha Fitness Studios in Lekki Phase 1 next time you're in Lagos. So until the next time, bye-bye!
Hello, great people of Nigeria. Welcome to the Leadership Clinic. Today, I'll be speaking on building emotional intelligence as a leader. Every leader who can not manage emotions will always react rather than respond. I have seen a lot of leaders who occupy public positions, but they do not know how to manage their anger issues. They don't know how to manage the various humans that they work with. Your ability to work with very difficult people, your ability to work with people who are not reasonable, your ability to work with fools, your ability to work with very intelligent people, your ability to work with all manner of people depends on the quality of emotional intelligence that you have. The more emotional intelligence you have as a leader, the more respected you will be as a leader. So you'll be able to understand that there are certain personality that you have. Your makeup has to be understood by you. Your ability to be able to know your strength, your weaknesses, what makes you cry, what makes you go off the hook, what makes you really get out of your personality and behave in a way that is inconsistent with your person. Your ability to know what works with you is called emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is so great that leaders who have understood how to utilize their strength and their weaknesses, they have been able to avoid certain kinds of issues that literally stop their leadership capacity to be able to make enough progress as it's supposed to be. So at every point in time, emotional intelligence tells you when somebody is angry around you, don't react. Be assertive towards that individual. When somebody criticizes you, emotional intelligence tells you it's not a time for you to be able to actually fight back. It's a time for you to be able to look inward and see whether what that person is saying makes any sense at all. And then you'll be able to tap into that and then grow. Emotional intelligence tells you that you must learn how to understand the feelings of other people. You must learn how to understand how other people feel, the shoes other people are wearing. You must be able to wear those shoes as well, to be able to know how they feel. One of the most interesting things about emotional intelligence also is your ability to be able to empathize intentionally. Leadership is people first. So once you learn how to empathize with other people and you learn how to be able to ensure that you do things that are adding value to other people from the position of knowledge of those people, guess what? You begin to grow, you begin to expand, and you begin to grow in your influence and impact. Great people of Nigeria, you must remember, if a man doesn't have a purpose waking up, sleeping becomes interesting.
Have you ever wondered why your choice of school matters? I am not a fan of the regular list of things the internet or friends advise everyone to look out for. It goes beyond that, and very little things matter. Like I always tell parents, what you want in a school differs from what another parent wants from the same school. It is very important that you base your choices and preferences according to your needs. First, understand your child, and if you are considering a school for yourself, understand what you or your child's interest is. What type of school would you want? What type of curriculum? And how does that curriculum help you or your child's academic pursuit? So you need to do a lot of research. Do you want a school that engages students in extracurricular activities or a one-way academic school? Ensure to visit visit the school unexpected to avoid window dressing, and make sure you ask a lot of questions. Is it accredited? Can I see your accreditation status? Is the environment clean and safe? What is the ratio of teacher to student? What are the teacher's qualifications, especially your child's prospective teacher? What have previous student reports been like? Can I see the report and evaluation? I always advise that you put the teacher or school owner to the test by simply asking, what is your school's vision and mission statement? Some don't even know, and I am talking from experience. Make sure you have done your homework, of course, before asking that question. And if their answer does not correspond with what they say it is on their website or flag, then that's a red flag. How do the teachers speak? With a good or bad intonation? Remember that you are paying for quality. Remember, children learn what they see and hear. And one last thing, watch how you're received by the security guards at the school gate or the client relationship officer at the reception. Were they respectful, helpful, hostile, or rude? I take such seriously because first impression goes a long way. And if the school doesn't get it right from the first contact, why take your child there and spend your hard-earned money on a school that projects hostility right from the gate or reception? Honestly, that's my 2 kobo.
Issues as they break, the multitude, the political figures, the state and non-state actors.
There is a serious threat to democracy,
and our government seem to be incapable of protecting
the scheming.
This is not a period we should say bow and go. Every part of this country is important.
The intrigues.
There can be no one person that is bigger than the party.
Deft moves and the momentous declaration.
We didn't get any protection. I'm not particularly against anybody.
We track and capture them all.
I don't believe in godfatherism in politics.
Follow in-depth analysis and no-holds-barred interviews.
Armed forces of the country is well capable. They need the political will.
Are they just waking up from sleep? Is there complacency?
Feel the pulse of happenings in the political arena on AIT Democracy Today. Widely acclaimed authority on politics. Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. Nigerian time.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. You're watching Kakaaki, the African Voice, and it is the top of the hour, 7 a.m., that time of day when we take a look at the top stories, the front pages of the Nigerian newspapers. And, of course, we never do that all by ourselves. This Wednesday, we're joined by Dr. Yobosa Ugarin and Simon Reef Musa, who is also joining us this morning, both of them looking like $1 million. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Should I tell them what you told them, Simon Reef?
No.
Tell them, but don't tell them now. All right. So let's look at what the papers have for us this morning. We begin this morning with the Blueprint newspaper, which leads with the headline, 2027. INEC unveils revised guidelines for political parties. And the writers of that story says, the writers say, APC panel clears Yitwalda, Bashiru, 28 others for national convention. ADC slashes state, local government ward nomination fees for aspirants. You'll find details of that story flowing to page 7 of the paper.
And from there, we go over to This Nigeria. It says 2027, INEC unveils drafts guidelines for political parties. One of the writers says, new framework seeks to end chaotic primaries culture. And then on page 2 of This Nigeria this morning says, Labour Party zones presidential ticket to South.
Okay, let's go to another paper now, which is also talking about INEC and draft guidelines. Reactions as INEC meets parties over draft guidelines. That's on the front page of the Leadership newspaper this morning. You'll find details on page 4 of the paper.
And now let's see how the business engine leads this morning. It says stricter primary spending limit. INEC unveils tougher rules ahead of 2027. And just a business news there because the business paper, it says Dangote's refinery flooded with orders as fuel crisis looms.
Let's go now to the daily assets. FG tenders apology over nationwide power outages, pledges stable supply. That's the top story there. The writers there say blackouts beyond immediate control, says Adelabu. Power Minister blames electricity crisis on gas supply, pipeline repairs. You'll find details of that on page 2 of the paper.
Interesting, I must say, and I'm looking forward to reviewing this paper. The Daily Monitor says power outages. Adelabu apologizes, promises improvement in 2 weeks, attributes challenge to shortage of gas supply to power plant. Another writer says Ikeja Electric blames Lagos power outages on drop in generation.
And that's the same route that the Standard Times goes this morning. It leads with the story, power supply to improve in 2 weeks. Adelabu assures Nigerians.
All right, Al Jazeera Midweek says APC National Convention, trouble looms as contractors plant protests at venue. Rider says issue 48 hours ultimatum for 150 billion naira debt payment. What is remaining to be paid is over 1 trillion naira, says national president.
All right, the Daily Sun is the next paper we have. APC Convention Committee clears Yilwata Ajibola Duru. And the writers say others also get not to contest party positions. Aspirant institutes 100 million naira suit against party. You'll find details on page 26 of the paper. Page 6, page 26 too.
And to the New Telegraph, it says APC National Convention threatened as aspirant heads to court over alleged exclusion. Defendants served at party secretariat, given 30 days to enter appearance. That's on page 3 of New Telegraph today.
The Authority newspaper is the next one we have. Its headline says, lead one, says political parties push for amendments to Electoral Act 2026. The writer says, describe law as regression below public expectations.
And from there we go to Observer's Time. It says court delays RFI's bail decision. Next hearing on March 31. ICPC cites serious charges, potential interference with investigation. And top there is 2027 elections. INEC unveils draft guidelines for political parties.
Alleged corruption. El Rufai remanded. Bold red screaming headline this morning, the usual for the Nigerian pilot. And the writers say former Kaduna State Governor to remain in custody as court adjourns bail application to March 31. El Rufai was arraigned over charges bordering on corruption, money laundering. Go to page 8 of the Nigerian pilot if you want to read details of that.
All right, to the Daily Global this morning, it says IGP Disu announces major reshuffle, releases list of new AIGs and CPs.
Nigerian News Direct is the next paper, and this one is talking about money. Nigeria's FX inflows surge to $4.4 billion. You'll find details of that on page 5 of the paper. I hope some of that FX is flowing into your pockets.
All right, hopefully too. That's about the papers we'll be reviewing this morning. We'll now come to the studio to bring in our reviewers, starting with about the lead story this morning, which appeared on Blueprint, This Nigeria, and a host of others. It's talking about 2027, that INEC unveils revised guidelines for political parties. APC panel clears Yilwata, Bashiru, 28 others for National Convention. APC National Convention, and INEC unveiling draft guidelines for political parties. I'll start with you.
Well, it is normal for the Independent Electoral Commission to unveil guidelines, especially as we approach primaries, so that the political party would know the rules of the game. And that has only been the procedures. But at the end of the day, you find out that many of the political parties don't even obey the rules. For example, before now, INEC will fix the amount of money that you can spend for political campaign. They'll peg that of the presidential elections, the governorship elections, and National Assembly elections, and even State House of Assembly elections. But at the end of the day, they don't obey the rules. And because INEC has no way of cross-checking whether those rules are being obeyed or not, and they end up getting away with it. Yeah, it is good for them to unveil the guidelines, and I want to believe that they also have the capacity this time around to monitor the political parties in ensuring that they obey the rules. For example, the INEC hasn't said, oh, they should start campaigning. But many of the political parties are going about campaigning. So what is INEC doing about it? Do they have the capacity to sanction the political party, for example? If APC is flouting the rules of the electoral guidelines, do they have the capacity to sanction APC, the ruling party, the party where the president belongs to? So that has only been the procedures. You issue out the guidelines, and at the end of the day, political parties don't obey the guidelines, and they don't get sanctioned by the INEC. So that is a major problem, and I hope this time around, let's see what will happen. As for the APC, you see, part of the problem with political parties, which INEC is also trying to resolve, is the lack of internal democracy within the political parties when conducting primaries. This time around, perhaps the APC leaders just decided that, look, we're going to give one form to each aspirant, and that's exactly what they did. So every other person who paid for nomination form, yesterday I was watching one of these global network where two persons came on air, and they were saying that they paid. One of them said he paid 5.1 million naira to collect form, and they collected his money, and they refused to give him nomination form. So yesterday, at the end of the day, the people they want to contest the position, they were the one they give forms, and they fill it, and all of them were cleared yesterday. And from look of things, they were all returned. They are going to be returned. All of them are going to be returned unopposed. In other words, you have blocked people who are aspiring to positions within the political party. You have blocked them from contesting, from exercising their constitutional right, you know, for aspiring to political offices. You block them because of lack of internal democracies. This is what creates problems within our political space. And now those guys they say they've gone to court, but I doubt if there's any judge in Nigeria today that will give a restraining order against a political party that the president belongs to. If it is PDP, they'll be in a hurry to grant that order, but not in APC. So I pity those guys. I think what they should do now is to go and beg the party to refund their money, but going to court in an attempt to stop the APC for going ahead with their primaries is a waste of time and resources.
Simon, Yobosa makes it sound like it's a hopeless situation when you talk about internal party democracy. Incidentally, I was talking about it with Rena when we took that report on what IPAC wanted, talking about IPAC warning that either they should repeal the Electoral Act 2026 or amend it immediately. Now, looking at that headline, what are your own thoughts?
Well, if you look at it critically, I think it was yesterday I asked one of the members of the APC, I asked him, what will happen now that this internal party democracy is all what people are talking about, and we all know it is simply a cabal, it's simply a group that have taken charge. He told me, he said, whether you like it or not, at the end of the day, everybody will come back to APC. There will be no parties. Because as it stands now, there's weak opposition. And we need a vibrant voice that can stand up against those people who have, tried to take control of things. It's normal for INEC to come and tell you, oh, we have rules, we have rules. You see, in a nation where the rules are meant to be violated, you have so much rules that I don't even know how to start. So in a country, the tendency to violate that will bring know that the variant of democracy we are practicing in Nigeria is not the one that can emancipate or elevate or take governance to a level that will serve the populace. So, yes, 28, 29, the primaries will be conducted. But I'm very sure the outcome will be devastating because there will be uproar and there will be a lot of things. Even before 2027, the Inter-Party Advisory Council has come up to say they may boycott the poll. And if you also look at it, so many things are being done that all point out that things may not turn out right. The present hardship in the country, people are not happy. There is so hardship almost everywhere. And if government is for the welfare of the people, I think the attention should be how do we improve the living conditions of citizens against what we are seeing, a rise in fuel crisis. Yesterday I drove around the city. You just discovered that it was devoid of that traffic madness that we normally used to see. Nobody is there. So it tells you that in the eve of a general election, we are having too much crisis in our hands. And I only pray that those that are in charge of democracy, these critical stakeholders, I'm talking of the National Assembly members, they've been very, very silent. People are saying that this Electoral Act 2026, you need to do certain things in it. They've not done it. So it all shows that we have crisis in our hands. So I just believe that things will probably turn out right. But for the present, honestly, we have every cause to have this fear that something looming is ahead of us.
Okay, let me take some reactions from our viewers on YouTube. Africa Independent TV, if you like, spell it in full, it will bring you to the same account. Ebonyi Francis is jumping. It says, I beg, make the minister just resign, go face a gubernatorial ambitions. Talking about Adelabu, the Minister of Power. Olaruwaju says, Adelabu should just go. He is the worst Minister of Power ever. And Chikozie Odu says, the president that promised constant power supply has gone to buy solar. Then we have David Aboki saying as well that Adelabu said what? He's supposed to have resigned to pursue his gubernatorial ambition. And I think that takes us to our next paper from Daily Asset and the Daily Monitor.
Of course, that is the, in fact, you just stole it right out of my mouth. If you look at what the Daily Monitor puts out this morning, Yobosa, it says power outages. Adelabu apologizes, promises improvement in 2 weeks. If you take a look at the Daily Asset, it's the same thing. FG tenders apology over nationwide power outages, pledges stable supply. And I'm wondering, is it the apology that will bring the power? Or, because let me hear from you.
Well, I watched him on, fortunately, I watched him on AIT yesterday when he was addressing the press conference, apologizing to Nigeria, and, assuring us that in the next 2 weeks, the power supply will improve. Obviously, he's apologizing on behalf of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Because I remember vividly when Tinubu was campaigning about 2 years ago, he told us that if he's unable to fix power supply, that Nigerians should not vote for him again. And I hope Nigerians will remember that in 2027 general elections. Because the truth of the matter is that power is a major, I mean, whatever we do in this country revolves around power. If you are doing a small business, if you are manufacturing, if you are providing services, you know, if you don't have power, there's no way you can carry out this. I mean, there's no way you can carry out the services. So it is about everything. Where I stay, we're on a band A line. Right? In the last few days, we don't even get up to about 3 or 4 hours of power supply on a daily basis. You know, and that is the truth of the matter. The fact that the man has apologized, it will change anything. You know, a friend of mine very close to my house recently invested almost about 9 million naira in an attempt to freeze power. I mean, the solar source of power. You know, and that's exactly what almost every Nigerians are doing now, because they no longer rely on the national grid to supply them power. Even at the villa, the president recently said, look, they are ready to cut off from the national grid and link up to link up their supply to solar. So it is a major problem everywhere. And coupled with the fact that we also have something that is global now, the issue of fuel, and it's compounded the problem. Although the argument they keep on making is that, oh, they don't have, what is responsible is lack of gas supply, you know, to the power sector. I think that's exactly what the NSC responded to about a few days ago, where they were saying that, look, the powers and the power ministry and that of the energy should be merged, so that we'll have one ministry that controls the two, so that at the end of the day, they will not have this power play over who supply gas or how much they will pay. By the time you have the two ministry, you know, merged, then somebody is controlling it, so they should be able to determine regular supply of gas and also fix the power setup. I think that was the recommendation of the NSC a few days ago. But like I said, it is a major problem. Money that Nigeria would have, you know, used for other things, they are using it in buying generator, buying fuel. How many people can even fuel their generator now with the rate we are buying fuel now? Yesterday, I drove to the filling station. I discovered that fuel is now selling for 1,375 naira in Abuja. And I was complaining, and somebody from Benin called me. I said, look, the fuel, a liter in Benin now is now 1,500. In some places, in the far north or in the far east, is going to almost about 1,650. And the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry warned yesterday that if we don't arrest the situation, if the government refuses to intervene, it will get to a point where we're buying a liter for 2,000 naira. And that will end up crippling the entire sectors in our country. And that will push the inflation. And that will affect the transport system. It will affect prices of goods, you know, in the market. The other day, somebody went to the villa. It was assuring President that in view of the global crisis we are having, that they were going to roll out this CNG, you know, as of today.
100,000.
Yeah, 100,000. As of today, nothing has been done. Yesterday, I was going home around 6 o'clock. There were so many people waiting for buses at the bus stop. No vehicle.
Which bus stops, to be specific?
I know. For example, there's one behind that Transcorp. You know, that place is always...
Yeah, okay. That one at the junction of Ghana Street.
Yes, Ghana Street. There were a huge crowd yesterday, as at 6:30. Huge crowds.
And those are basically people going
towards... Yes, going to Yaya and all
Nyanya, Maraba,
there was no bus to take them. And somebody was lying through his teeth that he was going to roll out 1,000 CNG buses the other day. So, and that is a problem we have in this country. We don't plan ahead. And the part of the problem we're having today is because we don't have reserve. There are other countries, most of them are not feeling it because they have reserve. There was a time the former Farouk, who was the executive secretary of one of the regulatory agencies, Dangote fought him to the extent that at the end of the day, the man was kicked out of the office. The whole idea was that...
And that also had collateral damage.
Yes, the whole idea was that the man was saying, look, I agree that you are supplying, but we need to import so that we can have enough reserve, so that during crisis period, we'll have enough fuel that will roll out, that will cushion the effect of that crisis. The man fought him, and because he's so powerful, at the end of the day, the president kicked the man out. As of today, we don't even have reserve. Other countries who have reserve, they are now rolling out their reserves to cushion the effect of the crisis we have in the global oil market. So, right. And that's the country that plan ahead. We don't plan ahead.
Okay, let's bring you in and see what you make of this. Okay, we have to run, but the minister is blaming it on shortage in gas supply. Well, is that not enough reason?
That would not be enough reason, because like he said, if you have a country where they plan ahead, you will definitely try to curtail such unforeseen circumstances. The minister yesterday said that this country needed $100 billion to fix the power sector. And I said, where is he going to get the 100 billion? Because the unfortunate thing is that when we are confronted with a situation, instead of looking at the present, how to fix the present issue, we now go and come up with a bogus figure that needed to fix the entire thing. It's just like when somebody gives birth to a child, and you go and tell the father, before this child will become a man, you have to keep 10 million naira. It's not possible. So what I want to say here is that as far as I'm concerned, the power sector has failed. It has failed in the sense that the power minister is more interested in pursuing his governorship ambition. I hope and I pray that by March 31st, he will resign and go back to face his political ambition. So, as my friend has said, well, the president gave us hope before he came in that if after 4 years, he's unable to give us light, then we should not vote for him. I think we should look at all those things from a very, very wide-ranging perspective. It all tells you that the power sector, the problem in the power sector is something that cannot be confronted. But a determined mind, a determined leader can confront that issue, because people have taken the power sector just as a place where they make money and nothing more. So even at the end of the day, you generate 6,000 megawatts, but what is distributed is less than 4,000. So it shows that it's not just a problem of one of the sectors, whether in generation, whether in distribution or transmission. The whole problems are too many. So, but honestly, it's quite a tragedy of monumental proportion that after 4 years, we are still battling with the issue of power supply.
All right, let's bring in some of
let's even look at what people are saying. You were going to go to YouTube, right? Let's look at what our viewers are saying this morning about these issues quickly before we go to the next issue, because the next issue is a very important one too.
Right. Okay, we'll start with Sonny Isti, 3128. He says, how else can a man fail? I would really want to hear his campaign promises in Oyo State. Adelabu just collected his signed testimonial for life. And Ima Shege writes to me, he says, this childish Onoshorena Obozege only sees negative comment against APC Tinubu government. She's highly unprofessional on the screen. Well, another user, Nkechukwu, says, please, can any of your analysts guess when Nigeria will achieve regular power? Email KK says, I lost over 100K in meat as a small restaurant. I had to buy diesel for 1,800 naira per liter. We're so sorry to hear. KK says, do not vote me if I don't give you power within 4 years. Nigerians, it is up to you. Okay. Those are some of the conversations.
Some of the comments there, but Yobos, I'm coming back to you now. If you take a look at the Al Jazeera midweek, the headline there seems to be talking about the APC National Convention. Yeah. But if you take a deep look at what the paper is actually, that headline is about, it says trouble looms as contractors plan protest at venue. So what we are talking about here is actually the fact that contractors who've executed their contracts for the federal government for the 2024 year, the budget year, are yet to be paid. And they are the ones planning this protest.
Very sad. And very sad. You know, Contractors, you bid for a job, and at the end of the day, you are given a job, and you are told to go ahead and execute the job with the hope that the government will pay you. And some of them even went as well as going to the bank to borrow money at a very high interest rate, and hoping that by the time they execute the job and they are paid, they quickly go to the bank and repay their load. Some of them have not been paid for years.
I was speaking to one contractor recently who told me that one of his friends is owed 3.5 billion naira.
Yes, some of them have not been paid. And in the process, some of them might even develop high blood pressures, and some of them died, you know, in the process. Because if you have executed a job running to about something, billions of naira, and you borrow the money to execute that job, hoping that the government will quickly pay you so that you can pay by your load. And for 3 or 4 years, government is still owing you, and there's no indication that the government will pay at the end of the day. Then that's a major problem. It's not just at the federal government level, even at the state level, even at the Ministry of the EFCC. Recently, there was huge protest in front of the office of the Minister of EFCC about the refusal by the ministry to pay the contractor for a job done, you know, and it's a major problem. But as for going to the Eagle Square to protest, I think that is just not possible. They will not even have access to that place, especially when the president is coming to that place. So let's forget about that. But it's quite unfortunate. They will not have access to that place. When the president is coming there, the vice president is coming there, no, forget it. They will not have access to that place. But the truth of the matter is that the questions that question is really sympathetic. It's very sympathetic. And the necessary government authority should do everything to ensure that those guys are paid. You see, part of the problem is also with the ministry. You execute a contract, and the person charged with the responsibilities of paying you will also demand for his own share before you are paid. And at the end of the day, if they have enough money, in determining who to pay, they look for those who are settling them, you know. They pay those one first and tell you, oh, we don't have enough money to pay you. Wait until we have enough money. And those guys, those set of people might wait until they don't come and they will not get paid, you know. Nigerian is an embodiment of corruption from the lowest to the highest. It's the embodiment of corruption. So if we want to fix our problem in this country, you know, we have to face corruptions. They might have money, but the Accountant General will be telling you, well, we don't have money, until you come and discuss with him. Discussing with him means that you must exchange something. Look at the other day, the Accountant General that spent less than 5 months in the office, and he was jailed, is it 70-something years? 72 years.
Yeah, but those were for things he did when he was a director. Yeah. Not when he was Accountant General.
Well, whether he was a director or Accountant General, but he was acting Accountant General.
All right, but we must go now, unfortunately. We never have enough time to discuss these issues on the newspaper review, but you know, they say the best things, they're very brief. The very best things. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming to the program.
Thank you so much.
Simon Musa and Dr. Yebosa Wugaren joining us this morning on the newspaper review. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll begin with our very first conversation. Stay with us.
Focus Nigeria. It's a huge task, but we take it on.
I think that is the law. National Assembly is not doing hearing on insecurity in Nigeria. It is America that is doing hearing on insecurity in Nigeria.
Monday to Friday on Focus Nigeria, we identify the nagging issues.
So people put people in poverty deliberately, deliberate misplacement of priorities, and brought people on their knees to suffer.
We seek answers to the tough challenges.
And because of
for the former president, yes, what I know is that he has not turned his membership card. He has not been attending your meeting.
Leave that to us to deal with.
There's no shying away from the issues.
The system is held accountable. The leaders are accountable for the funds, for the resources that they manage.
No sitting on the fence.
The same thing that made you live where you are may confront you.
Focus Nigeria, 10 a.m., Monday to Friday on AIT. People, politics, and power brings context and clarity to issues and events in governance, democracy, and development. On People, Politics, and Power, we feature people who shape the events and define the issues.
A lot of the agencies are still struggling with implementation of freedom of information.
The government should come. We need Nigeria to work.
We examine the interplay and interaction of politics with power and their impact on policies and the people.
It's about getting the system to deliver the kind of electoral outcome that people will be happy with.
People, politics, and power with Imoni Amarere.
Will low-performing agencies be held to account? Or will the numbers fade after the headlines?
At 1 p.m. every Monday and Friday on AIT. The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, online. The issues as they break. The multitude, the political figures, the state and non-state actors.
It's a serious threat to democracy.
And our government seem to be incapable of protecting.
The scheming.
This is not a period we should sit back and go.
Every part of this country is important.
The intrigue.
There can be no one person that is bigger than the party.
Deft moves and the momentous declaration.
We didn't get any protection. I'm not particularly against anybody.
We track and capture them all.
I don't believe in godfatherism in politics.
Follow in-depth analysis and no-holds-barred interviews.
Armed forces of the country is well capable. They need the political will.
Are they just waking up from sleep? Is there complacency?
Feel the pulse of happenings in the political arena on AIT Democracy Today. Widely acclaimed authority on politics. Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. Nigerian time. Focus Nigeria. It's a huge task, but we take it on.
Ask him where is the law. National Assembly is not doing hearing on insecurity in Nigeria. It is America that is doing hearing on insecurity in Nigeria.
Monday to Friday on Focus Nigeria, we identify the nagging issues.
So people put people in poverty deliberately, deliberate misplacement of priorities, and brought people on their knees to suffer.
We seek answers to the tough challenges.
And because of for the former president, yes, what I know is that he has not turned his membership card. He has not been attending your meeting.
Leave that to us to deal.
There's no shying away from the issues.
The system is held accountable. The leaders are accountable for the funds, for the resources that they manage.
No sitting on the fence.
The same thing that made you live where you are may confront you.
Focus Nigeria, 10 a.m., Monday to Friday on AIT. People, politics, and power brings context and clarity to issues and events in governance, democracy, and development. On People, Politics, and Power, we feature people who shape the events and define the issues.
A lot of the agencies are still struggling with implementation of freedom of information.
The government should come. We need Nigeria to work.
We examine the interplay and interaction of politics with power and their impact on policies and the people.
It's about getting the system to deliver the kind of electoral outcome that people will be happy with.
People, politics, and power with Imoni Amarere.
Will low-performing agencies be held to account? Or will the numbers fade after the headlines?
At 1 p.m. every Monday and Friday on AIT.
Thank you so much for staying with us, Kakaaki, the African Voice, this Wednesday morning. Time to go into our very first conversation, like we did tell you. Let's talk about population issues now. The last time Nigeria had a population census was in 2006, actually. I remember 2006. That's 20 years ago. And each time people talk about Nigeria's population, even on the international scene, we talk about an estimated figure. And how does that work? Have there been population activities in Nigeria since 2006? How do we deal with the problem of a rapidly growing population and dwindling foreign funding? Because a lot of the work being done has been through foreign funding. Those are the issues we're looking at this morning. We have three gentlemen with us. That's an expanded panel, if you ask me. We have, starting from my left, we have Dr. Ejike Oji, who is the chairman of the Association for Advancement of Family Planning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. We also have Dr. Nnamdi Maduekwe, who is Director of Population Studies Department at the National Population Commission, NPC. That's government there for you. And John Shekuduza Chawa, who is Manager, Advocacy and Resource Mobilization of the Planned Parenthood Federation of Nigeria, PPFN. I have a question for you, but that will be off camera.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. And I must say that I feel blessed amongst men. I feel a lot of security this morning on this set. Thank you and welcome. Now let's talk about Nigeria's population agenda, starting with you, Dr. Oji. And when we talk about population activities and agenda, what comes to mind will be head count, counting numbers, knowing the number of infrastructure and humans that we have, because we're talking Nigeria in Nigeria. Seems it's beyond that with your report from early this week. Talk to us about it.
Yes, thank you very much for having us this morning. When I talk about Nigeria, when I look at the population, I feel very sad. Because almost 20 years ago, some of us were shouting at the tops of our voices that if we do not manage our population now, we're going to be in serious trouble. And then the birds have come to roost, or the hens have come to roost. Like you know now, we have what we call all the, as a physician, we say clinical signs of population crisis. When there are three things you see in a country, you know that you're in a population crisis. Number one, when you have a youth bulge. The population of Nigeria, 74% of the population is under the age of 34. In fact, people 65 and above is just about 3.5% of the population. And then the next thing is, because of that youth bulge, if you do not invest properly, give them jobs, educate them well, and then they become citizens of rights, they'll start looking for where to get those things, especially the ones that have been a little bit educated. They start migrating. So Nigeria has one of the highest immigration rates in Africa as we speak. In fact, in 2006, it was said that for every 100 Africans that cross the tempestuous, I always make sure I underline that, Mediterranean Sea to Europe, 14 of them were Nigerians. Remember when Buhari came into power, he brought back Nigerians from Libya. About 20,000 Nigerians were flown back from Nigeria. Yes. Another 20,000 were caught up between warlords as sex slaves. So that shows there's a high rate of immigration. Almost all our top doctors, top lawyers, everything, every facet of our professional business out of the country. Now, the last one is when nationals start killing nationals. There's no part of Nigeria that is safe as we speak. If it is not bandits, it is terrorists. If it's not terrorists, it's kidnappers. So these are the things that gives you a picture of what's going on in the country. So in terms of the population, and you correctly said it, after 20 years, any estimation we make now is a guesswork. It might be much more. I remember always coming to a room, I ask people, in the last count, were you counted? Minimum 30% said they weren't counted in the last population count, census. And anybody that is a manager will know that data is life. Without data, you actually, it's like somebody flying blind in an aircraft. So data is important. That's why some of us are shouting also. This is the time for us to have our census, so that we'll be able to know how many we are. And then all this, like I say, all these estimations that we're making, we might be wrong. But coming to sum up all of that, I hope you know that Nigeria has, in fact, you say Nigeria is where the worst place a woman can have a baby. And then the latest information that the life expectancy of Nigerians has fallen to about 54.9. That's about the lowest in the world. Meanwhile, the average life expectancy of the world is about 77 years. So we're about almost 20 years below par. So I can go on and on and on and on. So the last APLS, like you correctly mentioned, when the Trump administration came, they cut off funding. In fact, USAID alone removed $600 million from the international community for funding family planning across the globe. And Nigeria was also hit. And what is the result here? We have a lot of stockouts. The Minister of Health has tried to raise money and then through the HOPE agenda. And then they have the DLIs where they say they have to be able to, if you do very well, you earn more money. Okay. So this is the problem. So unless we look inwards, for me, I had 4 speaking engagements outside the country last year. And what was I speaking? Domestic resource mobilization. This is an inflection point in the history of, let's say, Africa, the global South leaders mainly. They should know there are no free lunches. So we must make sure that we look inwards to fund our healthcare.
All right, let's talk to Dr. Madukwe now. You work for the National Population Commission, and of course, these issues fall directly on the table of your commission. Now, when we talk population activities, a lot of people will be asking, what does the NPC do? Because 20 years now, we've not done any population census, and we know that that's probably the top of the things that the NPC does. So talk to us about this. No population census since 2006, and we are projecting. Everybody's talking about estimated figures. How do we plan? Is it safe for us to predict that your proposed population agenda on a projected figure is just a projection and nothing more than that?
Well, I'm happy you came from that direction. But like we used to say, I am a man under authority. First, I want to appreciate AIT for being the first to pick up on this report. Our desire was that, it should be given wide dissemination, wide coverage. So, on behalf of the Chairman, National Population Commission, and the 37 Honorable Federal Commissioners and Director General, I want to thank AIT for taking this lead. Yes, what does MPC do? The APLS 13 report, if you have gone through it, will tell you that MPC is a multi-mandate, multi-functional organization. Yes, when it was started around 1988, there was a critical need for a census. And so it became the function, the mandate that the Commission is mainly known for. The Commission has 4-5 line departments. And line departments are departments that carry out the core functions of any organization. We have a department of census. We have a department of planning and research. Planning and research, they carry out surveys. We just finished a mini NDHS. And then we have, very, very important, civil registration of vital statistics department that carries out registration of births, deaths, marriages. And then we have geographic resource department that goes out to map, lay the groundwork for an accurate census, produces the template for enumeration, and for whatever you do with the data that you produce. And then you have the population studies department, which is my department, that has the mandate to carry out research on topical demographic issues in Nigeria, apart from other functions that, we carry out. MPC is a very large organization, probably one of the biggest in the country. MPC is bigger than so many ministries because there's hardly any other organization that has reach across the country. There's hardly any community you get in Nigeria, you don't see the mark of MPC. It's either we have gone to collect data or our registrars are registering vital events or we are mapping. So we are up to a lot. And that's why, even if there have not been a census, there have been other cognate activities that the Commission has been carrying out. So we are very busy. And yes, we have been depending on projections because there's not been a census since 2006. But there are scientific bases for projections, even though, like Dr. Ejike said, when you have a stretched time span, it begins to question the validity of the projection. But that is what we have. And since we have other generating activities like the surveys, we have indicators generated from all those other sources that will help us build robust estimates. And then, thank God for the new administration. We're very hopeful that very soon the country will hear something positive about carrying out a census.
All right, talking about carrying out a census, since 2006, we first made a postponement that in 2016 we'll have it, in 2018 we'll have it, 2022, 2023, and then we kept blaming lack of funding and insecurity in the country. You're not able to reach places. As you mentioned, I think everyone would agree with you that you do a lot. NPC, you even determine what the budgeting looks like. What I mean determine in that regard, underfunded, the government can be budgeting for 200 million people. Meanwhile, in the last 20 years, we've grown to about 300 million people. And right now, nobody quotes exactly how many we are in Nigeria. People would rather say over 200 million Nigerians because that's the statistics. And it's so blind and somehow ineffective to be, Dr. Oji here spoke about how you cannot do anything without data, really. But let's
life.
Yeah, so we are going to have the first ever digital census, which was relying on data from 2006. So let me come to you, Mr. Chawa. All of these problems that we noted, which we say are why, the insecurity around the country and the lack of funding, have they been addressed, which we say they are factors hindering the conduct of a fresh census 20 years after the last one was done? What should we expect anyone anytime soon? Say these challenges have been addressed.
Okay, so thank you once again, AIT, for having us here. And on behalf of the Executive Director of PPFM, we are saying thank you once again. My colleagues have clearly stated an issue. The question is solution. How do we get it right? And this is bringing us back to the conversation we had last year during the APLS starting. Now, critical, Dr. Oji mentioned it, domestic resource mobilization. You mentioned it initially, funding, it has been the order of the day. And we from the developmental, whereas developmental partners, our responsibility is to partner with government. Our core mandate is to make sure that every Nigerian, young women, young people, women, the vulnerable, have access to services and without any hindrances. Our role is to support this government. Our role is to partner. Now, we have had multiple funding coming in from outside, international bodies bringing in their funds, supporting. For the past 6 years plus now, in fact, just like Dr. Oji said, during the Trump first tenure, we had dwindling resources. Now, these dwindling resources started from the first term of Trump. He left, we had some little bounce back, and then by the time he came back again, it's obvious that it's no longer dwindling again. It's now a continuous decline. And that is what is forcing us back to thinking internally, domestic resource mobilization. And how do we achieve that? It's not impossible task. First, we must have government at budgeting. We must look at it critically. We must move away from lip services. We must move away from making empty promises. We must move away from making statements and commitment to implementing. Just last year, we had a conversation around matching fund from government. About 4 billion naira was stated from government. But do we have that release of funds? We have a conversation about family planning budget line. We don't have it stated clearly that this is what is coming for family planning. You know, now, but there have been statements. UNFP have been supporting. PPFM, we have been having inflow. But can we continue to support, continue to depend on external funding? We need to look inwards. We need to look inwards and make this firm statement. So what we need from government right now is commitment. Now, commitments have been made, statement has been made, but we need to implement those statements. So from us, that is what we see as a solution.
Dr. Oji, I'll come back to you.
I would have loved to weigh in on that.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because she mentioned hindrances, inhibition to census holding. She mentioned security. Yes, security is a real issue. I have been a member of the Hard to Reach committee, planning towards the census. And we looked at all those issues, security, terrain challenges, other restrictions. And we worked hard to fashion out viable strategies. Now, think of it. Even though census has a wider reach than an election, because they say it's the largest peacetime activity any nation can embark on, Nigeria still conducts election, and it gets to almost every part of this country. So security should not be something that will stop us from counting ourselves. Apart from that, there are technologies. The commission was able to map the entire country. So how did we do it? So we can have a census. And then when we get to the bridge of those challenges, the strategies to address them will be rolled out. So I think the most important thing, like you said, is to move from this stage of planning blind. Because what census does for you is to give you a picture of the situation at a given point in time. And Nigeria is working towards that you have that baseline. If you have a robust civil registration system, then you can key into that. And civil registration will help you with what we call the population equation, the pluses and the minuses of it. Deaths and births, migration. So the inflow and the outflow. So I think we should be up to it. All the advocacies that need to be made for a census to hold. We're supposed to be running the senior census regime. That's 10 years. Yes, but I don't know how to describe it now. So we missed the 2020 round of censuses. So, and the commission is working hard to ensure that the next round.
One other thing that worries me, I'll stay with you, and I needed to be quick with this because there are plenty of things we need to discuss. Every single census Nigeria has held since independence, 1963, 1973, 1991, which I was part of, and 2006, all the figures have been disputed. Why so?
Censuses are disputed, even in the US. States take the government to court. It's about resource allocation. So there will always be issues. But, that's why the government goes ahead and sets up a census tribunal, so that if there are issues, they'll be able to educate on that. So, and it's because of that the commission has its present structure, having representation from every single state on the commission. So the government has been proactive in making sure that the interest of every group is taken care of. Of course, when you have done everything, there will still be issues. There will still be issues. So that's the thing. So we can't run away from it. There are contentions over other places, even the UK. So.
All right. Let's go to the report that just came out now. And looking at that report, it's highlighting the need somewhere in there for innovative domestic resource mobilization for population activities. Let's talk about that, Dr. Oji.
Yes, thank you very much. I remember, like I mentioned, when Trump came with this thing, I made a statement, I think early last year, that is an inflection point for global South leaders. Know there are no free lunches, and they should focus on mobilizing resources from
Freetown.
Even in Freetown. And then, following that, in November last year, I was invited to the International and what country drew away focus on domestic resource mobilization. And I mentioned there are 4 ways any government, any country can pivot to and be able to make money available for their healthcare sector, not just family planning. Number 1 is proper tax. There is something we don't like to call it sin tax because it sounds so terrible in the ear. But those consumptions humans make, even though they are enjoying it, it's also detrimental to their health. A good example is cigarettes, smoking. Government will put advisories, smoking is dangerous, don't smoke, but people still go smoke. It's their inalienable right to do what they like. So to reduce people smoking too much, you put a tax on it. And that tax is supposed to be used for health purposes, because at the end of the day, the government spends money to treat those people, especially when somebody has cancer of the lungs. It's also government somehow subsidizes the treatment. Then the other one is using private sector to provide services. And then you make sure that those services, when they are provided, they are verified and government will pay for it. Because there is no country that the government can provide services in a very efficient manner. Government is not known to be efficient, but private sector does. So use the efficiency of private sector, combining it with the resources government has to provide services for people. And then also mentioned the fact that Nigeria is already doing some of those things, like domestic resource mobilization. Mm-hmm. There was a state-level guide that was developed. The Minister of Health made sure that states develop their domestic resource mobilization strategy. So the important thing is to use the houses of assembly across the country to enable those platforms.
All right. So let's come to you, Mr. Chawa. Before we leave, this report that we're analyzing, the Annual Population Lecture Series, APLS 13, I see you holding a copy there. It also highlighted how we're growing rapidly in population as a country. What way would you then propose that we put this in check? You know, people are also wondering, how do you see us growing rapidly when you do not even count us? How did you even arrive at that? But let's look at what resources you would propose as a development partner to see that that number is in check.
Okay, so just to put context to what you've said, there's what we call the perfect storm. Nigeria is actually in the perfect storm. It was one of the conversations we had. And what does this perfect storm entail? 1, drop in donor funding. 2, rapid population growth, as you mentioned. And then 3, stretch in our infrastructural, health, and social services. Now, the issue of growth, you know, like we usually say, growth is a good thing. However, if it's not controlled, if it's not properly planned for, if it's not prepared for, it becomes an explosion. You mentioned the earlier question you asked about insecurity. You know, so once you have so much number that you cannot check, you cannot control, you cannot put in order. We are born to having security issues.
So how do we check the numbers? Because we must go now.
Yes. So now, first, I mentioned budget allocation. 2, PPP. Dr. Ojike has mentioned it. Public-private partnership. The private sector must come in immediately and take ownership beyond the CSR, because I know they do a lot of CSR and they stop at that. They should be very intentional, get into infrastructure, get into services, healthcare services with the efficiency. Number 3, health insurances. Health insurance has to come up. With the NHIS, we have to see how efficient these systems are. And then lastly, diaspora contributions. We need to have our people come in and see how they can support us effectively.
All right, the papers are reporting $4.4 billion as inflows from diaspora. Maybe that's coming up too. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We have to go now. Thank you so much. We've been speaking with Dr. Ejike Oji, the chairman of the Association for Advancement of Family Planning, and Dr. Nnamdi Maduekwe, who is the director of Population Studies Department at the National Population Commission, as well as John Shekoduza Chawa, who is Manager Advocacy and Resource Mobilization at the Planned Parenthood Federation of Nigeria, PPFN, looking at Nigeria's population agenda this Wednesday morning. Thank you, gentlemen, and have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, from here, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, it would be Kakaaki Social. Stay with us.
The issues as they break. The multitude, the political figures, the state and non-state actors.
It's a serious threat to democracy.
And our governments seem to be incapable of protecting.
The scheming.
This is not a period we should say bow and go. Every part of this country is important.
The intrigues.
There can be no one person that is bigger than the party.
Deft moves and the momentous declaration.
We didn't get any protection.
I'm not particularly against anybody.
We track and capture them all.
I don't believe it was for that reason in politics.
Follow in-depth analysis and no-holds-barred interviews.
Armed forces of the country is well capable. They need the political will.
Are they just waking up from sleep? Is there complacency?
Feel the pulse of happenings in the political arena on AIT Democracy Today. Widely acclaimed authority on politics. Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. Nigerian time. Focus Nigeria. It's a huge task, but we take it on.
Ask him where is the law. National Assembly is not doing hearing on insecurity in Nigeria. It is America that is doing hearing on insecurity in Nigeria.
Monday to Friday on Focus Nigeria, we identify the nagging issues.
So people put people in poverty deliberately, deliberate misplacement of priorities, and brought people on their knees to suffer.
We seek answers to the tough challenges.
And because of the former president, what I know is that he has not turned his membership card. He has not been attending your meeting.
Leave that to us to deal.
There's no shying away from the issues.
The system is held accountable. The leaders are accountable for the funds, for the resources that they manage.
No sitting on the fence.
The same thing that made you live where you are may confront you.
Focus Nigeria, 10 a.m., Monday to Friday on AIT. People, politics, and power brings context and clarity to issues and events in governance, democracy, and development. On People, Politics, and Power, we feature people who shape the events and define the issues.
A lot of the agencies are still struggling with implementation of freedom of information.
The government should come. We need Nigeria to work.
We examine the interplay and interaction of politics with power and their impact on
It's Wednesday morning and the internet has been buzzing with reactions, with debates and trending moments you do not want to miss. I am Chidera Isdoye now. We begin with the chairman of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, who has raised concerns over the impact of the Middle East crisis in Nigeria. Now, Dangote warned that if this conflict persists, Nigerians may be forced to adopt the work-from-home measure, similar to those that were seen during the COVID-19 era. Now, this warning comes as stakeholders monitor this situation closely amid fears of broader economic consequences of the crisis. Let's take a look at this video.
Their own generator. You know, I mean, you can see in some countries today what they've done, they ask everybody to work from home because they cannot, you know, yes, you know, I think Indonesia also, they say no, only go to work 4 days a week. You know, and they will look at the situation. If it doesn't improve, they will ask everybody not to go to work anymore. We will do like that time of COVID, where people will now go and work from home. So I pray, and we all need to pray that this thing de-escalates. If it doesn't de-escalate, you know, normally we in Africa, we don't have any reserves in terms of savings or in terms of this. And so people normally go out and look for money for the next day or for the even same day, some of them. If they don't work that day, they won't eat. So I think really we just need all hands on deck to pray that this thing comes to an end.
The saying concerning this, a news lover says, is Dangote now the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Information? Why is a private businessman the one for forecasting national movement restrictions? It proves that the government has officially outsourced our future to one man. And in the same line, Mojisola is saying, I do not understand though, why is the war affecting Nigeria? After all, we already have crude oil and our own refinery. Abi, there is something else you people are not telling us. Okay, and we have another user says, Dangote has made sense. Federal government should coordinate and cooperate. And we have another user saying, conflicts like this do not just go away or do not just stay political. They ripple into everyday life, our markets, jobs, travel, even how people work. We saw it during COVID, and it is a reminder how interconnected everything really is. Okay, and as this says, well, let's all work from home. It will be a good move to save transportation costs. This one, I agree. Okay, now moving on. A tense moment unfolded in court yesterday following a heated exchange involving activist Omoyele Sowore and a senior advocate of Nigeria. The confrontation erupted as Sowore firmly pushed back against remarks from the senior lawyer declaring, you cannot intimidate and insult me. Now, this situation, however, did not escalate further as claims was eventually restored ahead of the proceedings. This incident has since sparked conversation about professionalism and decorum within the courtroom. Let's see this video and then to social media.
This is a courtroom, sir. It is. Yes. It's a court of justice. Yes. We are discussing justice, yeah. No, not in the courtroom, sir. No, you can't. That matter. No, if the judge comes back, that's fine. But while we are in court, as a participant in the court process, we can discuss the issue of justice on paper. It's better done outside. It's done. The courtroom must be respected. It is respect for the courtroom to discuss what's happening. We are supposed to be doing it outside. No, there's no rule. Outside the courtroom. There's no rule that says to know. No, there's no rule. This place is a chamber of justice. It is. It's not meant for lawyers alone. You are as a party. Yes. Consider. Yeah. No. Not a press conference in the court of law. I am. Explain to me. I've practiced for close to 3 decades. I've never seen it in the courtroom. Yes. You don't do that in the courtroom. Well, sir, you are a press center, sir. You are a lawyer, huh? Not only a lawyer, I'm a senior advocate. Senior advocate of the masses. I am. I'm a senior advocate of Nigeria. I'm senior advocate of the masses.
Okay, now let's see what netizens are saying. Oluwafemi is saying, Mr. Sowore, even if you do not want to respect the courtroom or take the advice of a senior advocate whose primary duty is to the court, at least to respect the coat of arms of the country you want to govern. And we have another user says, respect for standing your ground. Intimidation only works if you let it. And we have PD who says, if everyone comes to courtroom and grants an interview as you are doing, won't that place Won't that place be rowdy? You should be conscious of what you're about to start. Everything is not gara-gara. There are some places that are holy and they need to be with sanctity. And we have Fields who says, what is wrong with having the press in the courtroom? Their high-handedness and disregard for the law is sickening. He meant chamber of injustice. Okay, now let's continue. Now, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has taken steps to resume control of a property linked to former Attorney General Abubakar Malami. The anti-graft agency is reportedly moving to take over Malami's Abuja residence as part of ongoing illegal and investigative actions. Now, sources indicate the move is tied to efforts to recover assets suspected to be linked to alleged financial misconduct. Now, details of this case remain limited, but this development signals intensified scrutiny by the EFCC. This situation continues to unfold as legal proceedings and investigations progress. Now, a lot has been going on with Malami. It has been a lot of back and forth, but let's see what netizens are saying. Now, Lead Great Mind is saying, is it a good job by the EFCC? I sincerely want EFCC to be apolitical. Do your work without being influenced by the people in power. And in the same line, another user says, if the allegations hold, then this is accountability in action. Public office is for service and not personal enrichment. The same system that empowers leaders must also hold them responsible, and no one should be above the law. And we have another user says, can you see what's now happening to them? Running the office back then, as if nothing can happen to them. Now, see how the tables turn around. Seize everything and let him understand that you do not abuse power anyhow, just because it has been given to you. Or we have another Nino who says, EFCC should be the best law enforcement agency in the world, even ahead of FBI. Please, I too love them. How can I join EFCC? I'm going to send you details shortly on how you're going to join, okay? Now let's continue. A leadership tussle has escalated within the National Union of Road Transport Workers following fresh developments here in Abuja. Musili Akinsoya, popularly known as MC Olomo, has reportedly taken over the union's national secretariat here in Abuja. Now, this comes a day after Tajuddin Barowa attempted to assume office as president. Citing a court judgment, said that he has ordered MC Olomo to vacate the position. This situation has heightened tensions within the union, with both sides laying claim to leadership. Let's see this video and then we go to see our reactions.
Over your one force here. Yeah, that's true. You see that? Yeah. Back to back. Motion address. Wow. And you show people
Netizens are saying, Olariwaju says, Oluomo is the rightful president. Barowa is just causing trouble. Court judgments aren't final. Oluomo is still in charge. Barowa's got no legitimacy. Oluomo is the people's choice. Let's continue. Another user says, MC Oluomo should obey court's order. It is also funny that the police moves to arrest the person that was declared winner by the court. Now let's continue. Another user in the same line is saying, and this is why we keep saying, when the head is corrupt, the whole system suffers. People start acting like they are above the law just because of their ties to the president. That is how institutions break down. No one should be untouchable, and obedience to the law should never depend on who you No. I will have one more user, okay? I think that is about that for that story. Now, the Nigerian army has dismissed a soldier over a controversial video circulating online. The soldier was discharged after posting a video in which he called on political leaders to enlist their sons in the military and personally take part in the fight against terrorism. The remark, which gained traction on social media, were deemed a breach of military conduct and discipline. Now, authorities say this action underscores the Army's commitment to maintaining professionalism within its rank. This development has sparked mixed reactions online, with debates ongoing over freedom of expression and military regulations. Let's see what netizens are saying. Now, architect Uchenna says, did he lie? No. But surprisingly, everywhere is quiet. Remember, the soldier was cheered and celebrated when he stated the obvious truth. Success has many friends, but failure is an orphan. Nigeria politicians hate the truth. Lesson, don't be poor, so your child will not join the army. Now, let's continue. Jane says, congratulations to the soldier. He doesn't know the luck he just got, okay? Now, let us also continue. And Abiasta says, the reality is that this soldier violated the standard social media policy of the Nigeria Armed Forces. It is not about what he said, but how and where he said it. In a time when we are fighting a serious war against terror, discipline is our greatest weapon. You don't fix the military by breaking its rules. I think this guy should be kept safe. And Chime says, of course, why won't they dismiss him? How dare he tell politicians to expose their precious children to the dangers they expose the soldiers to? And we have one more user in the same line saying, okay, that is about that. Now, finally, Nigeria's Minister of Power, Bayo Adelabu, has apologized to Nigerians over the state of electricity supply. The minister acknowledged the challenges facing the power sector and expressed his regret over the current situation affecting homes and businesses nationwide. He also assured the public that measures are already being implemented to address these issues, promising noticeable improvements in electricity supply in the coming weeks. Now, Adelabu also added that efforts are ongoing to establish and stabilize the grid and enhance overall power distributions. Nigerians now await the promised improvement as authorities work to deliver more reliable electricity. But let's see what netizens are saying. Now, Akim says, go back to the bank and leave the power ministry for those that will perform better than you. Since the day you assumed office, it's only how to increase tariff that you talk about. No achievement. Sorry, but let's see. Yomishola says they will wait for you to beg for what is rightfully yours, then promise you a token in exchange for your vote. The day you finally wake up is your morning. Another user in the same line, Abiasta, says, okay, apology accepted, and the progress is visible. The revival of the $2.3 billion Siemens deal under President Tinubu is finally hitting its stride, with 10 mobile substations already commissioned and the 2026 target of adding 4,000 megawatts to the grid. We are moving from managing darkness to building a 21st century energy backbone. The groundwork of 2025 is paying off. Okay, and he's also saying, it takes a leader to apologize, but it takes a visionary to fix the root. Chief Adelabu is tackling the gas supply constraints head-on with new interventions that are already stabilizing generations. We've seen the 2026 plan to end grid collapses for good. Let's support the reforms that are actually fixing the structural issues for the long term. We are waiting. And finally, Big Chris says, apology not accepted. He should send me my 30K for the soup that got spoiled cause of no light. Well, he will send it to you, I promise. And that's a wrap on today's Kakaaki Social. Do not forget to follow the trends and join the conversations online. I am Chidera Isidoye. See you next time.
Policies and the people.
It's about getting the system to deliver the kind of electoral outcome that people will be happy with.
People, politics, and power with Imoni Amarere.
Will low-performing agencies be held to account? Or will the numbers fade after the headlines?
At 1 p.m. every Monday and Friday on AIT.
ready for something big because StarTimes is giving you over Jara. For a limited time, when you recharge for 2 months, you get upgraded to the next bouquet free. That's more sports, more movies, more kids shows, more entertainment at no extra cost. Over Jara. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
For years, OPay has protected how the people pay. Every day, we move money to keep life going. Through our daily hustle of trying to make ends meet. Through the responsibilities we carry. And when the day's done, we rest easy because we've got extra cover. And because we're confident in the security we've built, we're backing it. Introducing Extra Cover, an extra layer of assurance on your OPay account. So you can send, pay, save, and move through life with peace of mind. Backed up to 5 million naira. The People's Payment Shield, now with Extra Cover.
All right, you're still watching Kakaaki, the African Voice, this Wednesday morning. After Kakaaki Social, we jump in straight into our second conversation. We told you earlier that being the fourth Wednesday of the month, it is time for another round of Kakaaki Cancer Awareness, which we bring to you in collaboration with the Commode Cancer Foundation. The CEO, Dr. Denise Ejo, is standing by. She's, of course, joining us virtually, and she'll be taking over this segment to speak to her guests. Clayton Yates is a professor of pathology. She's joining Dr. Denise Ejo this morning. So good morning, Dr. Denise. How are you today?
Morning, Kunle. Good evening, bro. I'm good. How are you guys?
We are good.
Your background looks very bright. Both of you look very bright this morning.
Thank you.
I was looking very dull. It's the light that is helping us.
Yeah, it is well. Thank you so much. So let's leave you to it then.
All righty, thank you. Good morning, viewers. Welcome to another edition of Commode Cancer Foundation Awareness with Denise Ejo in partnership with AIT. Together we fight, together we win. So today we're having a very important conversation, one that affects fathers, brothers, husbands and sons across Nigeria and the African diaspora. As you know, I keep bringing discussions about prostate cancer. So what is it, prostate cancer? It's one of the most common cancers affecting men. But for men of African ancestry, it is often more aggressive, more deadly, and too often diagnosed too late. So why is this happening? And what can we do about it? Let's talk about it. So across Nigeria and many parts of Africa, men are still not taking care or talking about their health, especially when it comes to issues like prostate cancer. So today I have a very good friend of mine with me, Dr. Clayton. But before I introduce him, many present late. Many never get screened. And sadly, many lives are lost that could have been saved. But this is not just a Nigeria problem. You know, I keep saying, no, everything is a Nigeria problem. There are global issues affecting men of African ancestry everywhere. Today, we are joined with someone who has spent years studying this issue, working across Africa, the US, and the African diaspora to understand why these disparities occur. And somebody who actually set up the Abeokuta Medical Center. Is it the cancer center you set up? Clayton, good morning. So my guest today is Dr. Clayton Yates.
Good morning, how are you doing?
I did a good job, didn't I?
Yes, you did. Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you. And it's the Abeokuta Medical Center, or is it the Abeokuta Cancer Center? Which was it?
It was the medical center at the time, and we didn't set it up. We just provided them with the first, abilities to start collecting samples and doing research so we could start to figure out really dive into why their patients were presenting in the clinic with aggressive disease.
Yeah, so you helped set up the Abeokuta Medical Center. It's correct. I said it right. Come on.
That's a little bit far-fetched, but
you
know.
helped to set it up. Doesn't mean you set it up. It means you helped to set it up. That's good. Thank you. So together we fight, together we get. Let me just then tell you all who Dr. Clayton is. He is a professor at Johns Hopkins University and a global leader in cancer disparities research. For over 15 years, he has worked extensively in Nigeria, building collaborations that explore the biological, genetic, and social factors driving aggressive cancers in underrepresented populations. His work focuses on improving equity in cancer care and research, advancing precision oncology for diverse communities. You are very welcome to Let's Talk About It, Cancer. So now, everyone, sit back. Let's have a fantastic conversation. Together we fight, together we will win this battle. So you've worked in Nigeria for years in different capacities. I think you will tell us about some of your favorite foods along this. In your opinion, why are men of Nigerian ancestry more likely to develop aggressive prostate cancer and experience poorer outcomes compared with other populations?
No, well, first of all, that's a really great question, and I think it's multiple things. So the first factor is it appears that we, as Black men, not just in Nigeria, because you kind of mentioned in your opening, is that this is a global problem. What we see across the world, where Black men live and reside, they present with aggressive disease. Right, so is it Nigeria, in the U.S., even if we start to look in the UK or other areas where Black men use, we know Black men have 60% more likelihood to be diagnosed with prostate cancer. 60%, and are twice as likely to die. So these things are really, really important. But the second part of your question was why? So we think there's several reasons. One, screening. All right, being tested. We know if men get screened, if they get tested, if we catch or diagnose the disease early, we have much better outcomes. Okay? If we don't take care of ourselves, we don't go to the doctor, we don't get tested, it stays in there, it gets worse. And then when you go to the doctor, there's very few options that we have available, and you're fighting an uphill battle. So that's one major issue, is that we have to take care of our health as being. We have to be important. We have to know that we're important. We're important to our families, and we are a vital structure of the home. So we have to take care of ourselves. I think the second part is, what I also study, is that we do see some genes and genetic sort of predispositions. We see particularly some genes that seem to be driving that. So if you can imagine, if there is some genetic component in the genes of the DNA, and then you wait too late to go to the doctor, what would happen? Not good things.
Interesting, because when I started with a statement saying, many present late, many never get screened, and sadly we lose many of them. That's the wrong way around then. It should have been, many never get screened, many present late, then many die. Based on your explanation, because that's what you just said. Interesting. Okay, guys, are you listening? I'm not a doctor, you know that, so I can't help you. Let's go to the next question. Thank you. And that leads me to this one now. To what extent do genetics versus environmental issues and lifestyle factors contribute to these disparities among young men of African descent? But we're still focusing on Nigeria. But yeah, African descent. I'm still maintaining Africa.
I think, again, over my 15 years studying prostate cancer in Nigeria, I've been studying prostate cancer for over 20 years over my career. It's all of them. It's not one or the other, right? If you could think about a situation where there may be some genetic predisposition, right? But then we have environmental factors where that exacerbate that, or we have a poor diet where we're not eating and exercising right, and so those genes that are in our body get turned on. But if we do certain things and then we live in our lifestyle, we eat properly, we take care of ourselves, we monitor our health, those genes that could be sort of promoting the cancer kind of stay low. They don't get turned on. And then it's something we don't ever have to deal with. And so again, that's why understanding your health, I am a male, obviously, but I also have a family. I have a daughter, right? And I can really tell you how the women in my life take care of themselves better than the men in my life take care of themselves, okay? And even as a doctor who studies this, we always have to be vigilant about our own individual health because we tend to put ourselves last. Yeah. Men, we have to put ourselves first, and we have to take care of our health, monitor our health, and make it a priority in our lives.
Yeah, but men choose life. Is it not maybe the way they choose lifestyle? Because men like having their active social lives, right? Where women are happy to stay at home and take care of themselves. Now, that's not a woman's fault. Men have to do that. Men have to look at men smoking, drinking, all those things are serious factors already, which have formed environmental and lifestyle options. So why can't men just do the right thing? I'm trying to push it back onto men because at the end of the day, I go back to the statement that a woman would have breast cancer and accept to have her breast cut off so she could live. A man would have prostate cancer and would not agree to just do the right thing to survive. That is an issue. So go on. Why? What do you want to? I know you're a man, so you need to help me out.
If I knew the answer to that question, we'd be much further along, even for myself. Again, as men, it's the image that we have for ourselves. It's the place that we see ourselves and the value that we feel we bring. And what I've been trying to tell men is that while we bring value as the head of the household, we bring value as the leader. We also bring value by being present, right? Yes. And being present and passing that wisdom and that knowledge that you've gained, not only to your wife, but to your children. So we have to start thinking about not only your wife, but your children that you need to pass this knowledge on to. And you can't do that if you're not around. So, it's sort of our ideals of how we feel ourselves and where our place is in the family, what our purpose is, right? And so there becomes a times that you are more than just the head of the house. You are a person that is continuing the legacy of your family. And if we start to view it in that way, I think we will take care of ourselves. The second thing is men, again, as the providers or the home, we tend to put off our health. We tend to put that off, a little bit more. Even for me, I'll tell you right now, my wife makes sure I go to the doctor. And again, I'm a doctor, but and I have to do that. But she stays on top of me even more. She reminds me, hey, you need to be in the doctor. Have you gotten your checkup? Have you done? So, those things I think are really important. And I think we also had to say God made two people for a reason. So we need to support each other.
I agree with you.
We need to support each other. But I'm here to tell men that it's important for you to get your health is important. It's important for you to get screened.
Okay, so one, how do late diagnosis and limited access to screening and treatment services impact survival rates?
Yeah,
I'm talking about diaspora as well, because if you look at it in the UK, you can't justify why diagnosis should be late when we all have the same access to treatment, and that applies in the US. So not just like, if you look at Nigeria, we could say, well, the economy, but across the diaspora as well.
No, so, I think that's another major factor. So the data says if you screen early, if we detect prostate cancer in early stage, there's not a difference in outcome difference between black and white men.
So in which case now?
If we catch it early, if we diagnose it late, there becomes a huge outcome difference.
Okay, so basically, give me the top 3 things men need to do now to stop being late diagnosis, because the issue is late diagnosis now. So basically, prostate cancer is not a prostate diagnosis that is an issue. It's a late prostate cancer that is an issue.
Number one issue. That's number one issue. There are multiple issues, but the number one issue, if anyone can take home today, is get screened, late diagnosis. Early diagnosis saves lives.
Okay. So because of what, okay, so let's look at it. Okay. Bearing in mind, we have a lot of cultural beliefs, which you have experienced and you know because you've lived in Nigeria, stigma, misconceptions with men. I would say that those would be, in my view, the fundamental reason why men would screen late. But in your experience, considering you have lived in, for instance, Nigeria, and you have worked in very many other African countries, and you have had a lot of communication with that, what is your opinion on this cultural beliefs, stigma, misconception, and this in this prostate cancer issue?
I think it's a priority, prioritizing our health. It's just not a priority until you get much older. And that's what we're saying, and then it becomes too late. So men is typically, we don't prioritize our health. We prioritize other things, as you mentioned, said active lifestyle. Those other activities that you mentioned earlier are a priority.
Yeah, but cultural beliefs. We have people. We have a lot of stigma that comes with prostate, which may be why. Which.
Well, it's also a fear of loss.
Uneducated, illiterates will also have an opportunity to hear what they're being translated. And
well, the prostate happens to be close to one of the vital organs of the man. Is how we self-identify ourselves, which is dealing with our testosterone, right? It provides some of the testosterone is right there and deals with sexual function. So some of the fear is loss of erectile dysfunction, or ED. That's associated with prostate cancer. Again, those sort of stigmas come with late disease. The new advances that we have today is that, again, we get diagnosed early. You can resume a very healthy and active lifestyle.
Yes, now that's the point. I wanted you to say that. You can.
You can disease. The problem is if we get there too late, then we have problems, and then we would have to. And then we see, sexual function, erectile dysfunction sort of coming to playing a role, much more of a role than if we diagnose it early.
Okay. I'm not going to harass anymore. What practical community-based strategies can the government, health systems, advocacy groups implement to help reduce these disparities? And I'm looking at it, as you know, I work here in Nigeria, in the UK, and in Nigeria. And although their systems are different, community-based strategies and government and health service systems are still central to making a difference.
No, I think for one thing, it's setting guidelines. Okay, so setting a clear set. So these are things the government can do. Setting a very clear set of guidelines. Should men get screened? When should they get screened, right? And what age? And have it very, very clear to their primary care providers and the larger community, and have people come on shows just like yours and make sure the word and the message is very clear, so that we have a very, very distinct, clear message that we're giving, and sort of demystify some of the confusion that is out there. I think that's really important for government, that they can play a role. The second part of this is capturing the incidents, right? So a lot of, particularly in Nigeria, we're not capturing all the incidents. Things sort of happen in some of the local clinics that are basically not reporting back to the government. So what we've seen over my 15 years, that a lot of these, particularly cancers that are being diagnosed, are not getting to the government because they're not being reported, right? Because of lack of reporting and communication. So the requirement to report cases, particularly in the villages, right, that back to the government helps the government be able to allocate resources to where it needs to go. So I think those are really big factors that where the government can play a role. And then the second thing is we again, screening. I cannot overemphasize screening, being screening based on clear guidelines outlined by the government. Screening is what we know saves lives.
Thank you. And my last ask. What project? Let me put it properly. How do people get involved in research in Nigeria to get this data out? Because it is data we're talking about. Without data, we're not going to get this. I.e. the Sambai, using the Sambai, for instance, project. You have one. Yeah, we have a prostrate in Nigeria. Yes. So the prostrate cancer Sambai project, how do we get people to engage in it? What would you say, very briefly? What do they need to do to get involved?
No, absolutely. So one thing is connect with you through. We have sort of, I think, two major issues that I'm involved with in Nigeria. One, I co-direct a prostate cancer transatlantic consortium. It was established by Kakaaki African. Many people may know that. We've been in Nigeria. We just celebrated 20 years of prostate cancer research in Nigeria this past last September. And so over that time, we have many sites, many research projects from behavioral to genomics and all sorts of activities. So again, when you go into your doctor, you can ask about research studies dealing with prostate cancer. The second initiative, as you mentioned before, is called Sambai, where our goal is to recruit 15,000 Black men to this to start to understand the question you asked me in the beginning. Is it our environment? Is it social? Is it cultural beliefs? Is it genetics? How do they all relate to each other? And so Sambai is an international. Nigeria is just one. We will have sites across the African diaspora, from Ghana as well as Kenya, Ethiopia. We have Black men in the UK as well as Black men in the US. And so we're going to compare all of these factors, how people believe, the culture, the society, the environment, and the genetics. And so again, we're looking as we begin to launch, which we feel like we will launch earlier in mid this year. Please look out for the Sambai moniker and enroll in our study. And we would hope that you can contribute to saving the life of yourself as well as your neighbor.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Clayton. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to send you an email after this, and you're going to send me the sites where they can go to so that we can put it out. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Yates, for sharing your knowledge and for the work you continue to do across the continent. Today's conversation reminds us of one simple truth. Prostate cancer does not have to be a death sentence. Early detection saves lives. Awareness changes outcomes. And conversations like this can break the silence. So together we fight, together we win. It's very nice to have you. And sorry I had to wake you up this early in the morning. To every man watching today, please do not wait. Know your risks. Speak to your doctor and get yourself tested. And to families, encourage the men in your lives. Sometimes that one conversation can save their life. As I sign off, I am Dr. Denise Ejo, the CEO of Courtroom Cancer Foundation. Follow us on all our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And this video will be on our YouTube page as soon as we can get it up, so you can actually go back and listen to the conversation and get involved. Thank you, Dr. Yates, for joining me this morning. And I think I'm going to say good night to you, right? Because you're going back to bed.
Yes, good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right, Kakaaki Cancer Awareness coming to you from our collaborator there, Dr. Denise Ejo, the CEO of Courtroom Cancer Foundation.
All right, yes, that was quite an interesting conversation. I see that the disparity in treatment and even in detection across African men right there, it was really rich and worthwhile. All right, from there we go to entertainment and lifestyle on Kakaaki African Voice.
Hello and welcome to Entertainment and Lifestyle on Kakaaki African Voice. I am Chidera Izudui. Filmmakers in Nigeria and Africa at large say they are long committed to enhancing documentary storytelling to foster critical discussions as well as facilitate skill development, especially among young creatives who are creating socially relevant films to impact their world.
We've built communities of people in advocacy, communities of people in Nollywood, communities of people who are, scholars in universities. But we've also built communities of young creatives who we hope that our work with them, the kind of films we have shown over time, the quality of training we have offered over these 15 years have empowered them to also do more with the camera, not just as a tool of entertainment, but as a tool for development, as a tool for nation building.
Hence, for 15 years, filmmakers through the IREP International Film Festival have continued to explore the transformative impact of documentary filmmaking in Africa, training and catching them young to tell the true story of Africa.
Documentary are so necessary and so special, because interesting times, things happening from the time you step out from your house, stories surround you, stories abound, and particularly these young people. They are the ones to take over and carry on as our country, indeed Africa, continues on its journey towards true development.
We believe that creativity is the next big thing in terms of monetization or whatever you call it. These creative youths that you see today, tomorrow they will be the people that you look at for. They will be the billionaires and the multimillionaires in different corners of the world when you see them tomorrow because of the creativity that they have in them.
Most people are not too conversant with documentary filmmaking, but with what IREP has done in the past 15 years, that consciousness has increased. You're seeing the number of people coming for the festival every year increasing. There's better consciousness, particularly among the youth, as regards documentary filmmaking beyond feature filmmaking.
The film festival reflects a renewed emphasis on African creativity, identity and talent, placing African storytellers at the center of conversations, shaping the continent's past, present and future. Lights, camera, and a touch of elegance lit up the atmosphere as the highly anticipated premiered in grand style. The star-studded event drew filmmakers, actors and industry stakeholders all gathered to witness the debut of a film already generating buzz for its compelling storyline and cultural depth. Ayusoro Yusora, the first Islamic film in Nigeria, translates to With Hardship Comes Ease and explores themes of resilience, faith and hope, delivering a powerful narrative that resonates with audiences across different backgrounds. Speaking at the premiere, the producers expressed excitement about the film's reception, noting that it reflects real-life struggles families face and triumphs in a relatable and impactful way.
Islamic-based film that is meant to educate families, make them to have endurance and have a unity in the family. It's good to endure together, and when you are enduring, also educate your children on how to understand the challenges of life.
I'm confident that after watching this movie, many people will change their thinking about some certain things. Their thinking, their advance towards a particular issue, their thinking will be changed.
With the name Al-Yusra Yusra, and I know what it means in Islam, means after every hardship comes ease. So one thing I know for sure I'm going to take home is I'm going to learn what it takes to be patient, because I know the movie is going to talk about be patient, because definitely after hardship comes ease.
With its official release underway and its premiere in Lagos on May 28th, expectations are high as our Yusura will make a strong impression at box office and spark meaningful conversations among audiences. In a bid to promote healthy living and unity within the film industry, the Actors Guild of Nigeria recently organized a vibrant health walk, drawing participation from actors and stakeholders across the country. The event, held in a lively atmosphere, saw Nollywood stars step out in the set, but of physical fitness. Giving
awareness program constantly. We are introducing the sports club to ensure that it's not just periodical, it's regularly for members to undertake or to take part in physical exercise.
We have a whole lot of members in Abuja, but you can see just few people came out. That is a way of showing you that people normally, it's not just actors, they don't take their health seriously. Now, one measure we have taken is this health walk. Another measure is the HMO scheme that the Actors Guild has put in place.
Actors Guild health awareness is a very compulsory thing because we have a lot of actors falling on sets. We have a lot of them, they just get sick because they don't check their health regularly. We are trying to create this particular image in their mind to let them know that health is wealth.
A laudable project. It is a laudable project. It is capital intensive. This goes to show how the ESCO, our mayor, has valued, or she has always valued the lives of actors, her members. And she has gone all out to do this, not just the walk alone, for actors to be tested, their sugar level to be tested. We shoot till late in the night, sometimes throughout the night, so you hardly have the time. Maybe when you're not on set, you're attending an audition, you just want to, But this is an opportunity for actors to come and get themselves properly checked to ensure that they are in good health. And
the health walk also served as a platform for bonding among members, reinforcing unity and collaboration within Nollywood. The Actors Guild of Nigeria say it plans to make this initiative a regular activity as it continues to champion the welfare of its members. In a bid to tackle rising health challenges linked to poverty, Hope Alive Christian Center, in partnership with Global Missions, organized a medical outreach aimed at reducing preventable death in underdeserved communities. This initiative brought together medical professionals and volunteers who provided free health consultations, medications, eye screenings, and basic treatments to hundreds of residents who otherwise lack access to quality health care. Organizers say this outreach is part of a broader mission to bridge the gap between poverty and access to medical care, noting that many avoidable deaths occurred simply because people cannot afford basic treatments.